Hi, this is Peter B. And today I'd like to talk to you about the Topps Venezuelan cards. But before I do that, I want to talk about OPG. Topps had a contract with a company in Canada, OPG, to produce nearly identical cards as their top series from 1965 to 1992. These cards were actually printed in Canada, looking like their Topps counterparts, except instead of a Topps front, OPG logo was on the front. In 1970, OPG started to make bilingual text on the back in both English and French. In the late 80s, since these were printed after the top set, OPG decided to show that some of the players changed teams over the winter. Now, let me just move Mr. Robinson off for a second. Here is the Topps Reggie Jackson on the California Angels. And here is the back of it. And once again, notice the front. OPG knew that he changed teams and was now in Oakland A. So they came out, same picture, same format. He's still, same photo, he's still dressed in the Angels, but they changed the Angels logo to the A's and changed the lettering from red to green. And notice the OPG in the front and notice the Topps. And there's the back. And note the position, designated hitter, and then the French version of designated hitter. And more key says now with the A's. So that's OPG, and pretty much anyone who collects baseball cards has heard about OPG. And pretty much everyone knew they were printed in Canada, had practically the same fronts and the same backs except for the French edition. So that's OPG. What I didn't know until about 10 years ago, Topps also had cards printed in Venezuela. From 1959 to 1968, they had cards printed in Venezuela. They had 59 and then 60, but after 60, they only produce every other year, the even years. So 62, 64, 66, etc. Up until 1968. They did produce in 1967, being an odd year, and they were a little different than all the other years these Venezuelan cards were produced. And I'll show you that at the end. They looked like the front of a regular Topps card, but they had much flimsier cardstock and a less glossy finish. You can quickly tell the difference just by looking at them or touching them. And the backs were similar. They could have been different colors than the Topps version. And in 1962, the backs are in Spanish. So what you're seeing here is a Venezuelan Brooks Robinson. And there's the back. Compared to a Topps, notice the paper stock is much more white, much shinier, glossier. And notice the backs. This was all the Topps backs in 1964. They look like that. Similar, but instead of orange, they're black. So that's the 1964 Venezuelan card. So like I said, it started in 1959, and then from 60 to 68, they only printed in even numbered years, except for 1967. The cards look completely different, and there are actually 3 types of cards issued. Some people call them 3 different series. Active player cards look just like their Topps counterparts, but the backs did not have statistics, but a bio with a blue border. For instance, here is a 1967 Rico Pectorcelli. Same image as the 1967 card. Once again, the card stock is flimsier and a little duller. And here is a true Topps 1967 to compare. Now the back of the Topps, of all the Topps in 1967, looks something like this. But the Venezuela kind of did their own thing that year. And it looks like this. Little bio in Spanish. No statistics. And it's surrounded by a blue border. 1967 Venezuelan. Here's a Kalyastremski. Same thing. On the blue border. It's hard to find these cards in real nice conditions. I mean, this Yaz is a 1.5. Maybe the kids over there didn't collect them like we did. And the ones you do find seem to be taken from scrapbooks. A lot of paper loss on the back. So once again, the Venezuelan version of Topps in 1967, and these were the active players. Blue bordered backs. They also created a series of cards with retired greats. And here's Jimmy Collins, and it says retired. They're all like this. They're on a background with that sepia colored image of the player. And similar to the active players, except they have a green background. And then finally, the third series or version of these Venezuelan 1967 cards were actually from the teams and players who were playing in the early 1967 in the Venezuelan Winter League. And they were both Venezuelan players as well as major leaguers who were there to get in shape and get in practice and work on stuff. For instance, here's what they look like. The name of the team on the bottom, and that's a stadium in Venezuela. Their backs, and by the way, this is Cookie Rojas. Their backs have a red background. Octavio Cookie Rojas. And here's one more. Here's Louis Tiant. That's what they look like. He's getting in shape or getting practice in the Venezuelan winter leagues. And once again, the Redbacks. So hope you found this interesting. Like I said, I didn't know they did these cards till about 10 years ago. And I definitely wanted to have some, and I wanted to get at least one of each kind. So thank you very much. Have a nice day.